Gospel according to John. On the evening of that first day of the week, when the doors were locked where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood in their midst and said to them, "Peace be with you." When he had said this, he showed them his hands and his side. The disciples rejoiced when they saw the Lord, and Jesus said to them again, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, so I send you." And when he had said this, he breathed on them and said to them, "Receive the Holy Spirit, whose sins you forgive are forgiven them, and whose sins you retain are retained." Thomas, called Didymus, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples said to him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hands, and put my finger into the nail marks, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." Now a week later, his disciples were again inside, and Thomas was with them. Jesus came, although the doors were locked, and stood in their midst and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands, and bring your hand and put it into my side, and do not be unbelieving, but believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus said to him, "Have you come to believe because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and have believed." Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples that are not written in this book. But these are written that you may come to believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that through this belief you have life in his name. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You know, when we're dealing with something like resurrection to new life, it's entirely beyond our grasp. Resurrection, life after death, is way beyond us. We can't understand it. We certainly can't prove it. There's an old saying, "Seeing is believing." That is absolute nonsense. It's just totally wrong. If we see something, we don't have to believe it. To believe something without seeing is called faith. And this is what our Easter season is all about. Faith. You know, there are some people who feel very uncomfortable in believing something they can't see. So in order to give themselves sort of a sense of security, they will state the articles of faith as if they're absolute facts. I am certain that when Jesus died on the cross, he saved the whole world. I am absolutely sure that there is life after death. I'm so sure of it, I don't have to believe it, because believing means there may be some risk. Yeah? It's like Woody Allen, who said once, "If only God would give me some clear signal, like opening a large account for me in a Swiss bank." But see, that's seeing to believe. Just the opposite of the truth. To believe something without seeing it is faith. Jesus calls you and me to faith. How many times in the Gospels did he say, "Your faith has saved you"? Not your certitude. Your faith has saved you. Certainly probably one of the hardest things in the world to believe is life after death. His first disciples didn't believe it. No, they didn't. When Jesus died on the cross, they thought it was all over. That was the end of everything. It was a nice adventure. They returned to their former lives and to their fishing boats. They didn't believe it. But then, can you imagine their shock when Jesus appeared to them and showed them his hands and his side? Then they rejoiced and they believed. But Thomas wasn't there. So when Thomas rejoins the group, they say to him, "We have seen the Lord." Thomas says, "I don't believe you." Just like we would say, "I don't believe you. What are you talking about? Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think I'm some kind of a fool?" Just like we would think that way if somebody told us that a dead person had come back to life. What a shock. But you see, Jesus returned when Thomas was there. And then he said to Thomas, "Now, see my hands, see my side." And then Thomas believed. Did you believe because you've seen? That doesn't make sense. If you see it, you don't have to believe. Thomas made an act of faith in much more than that. When he saw Jesus, he made an act of faith in his divinity. And he said, "My Lord and my God." That's faith. I think our gospel today really urges us to live by faith and to be comfortable with that. It urges us to be able to live without certitude. That's what faith is all about. To know, however, that our doubts do not mean that we're losing the faith. In fact, it's the opposite. When we doubt, that means we have faith. That may sound silly, but it's true. As someone wrote, "He who has never doubted has never half believed." I think our gospel today is urging us to have hearts filled with gratitude over such a gift as the gift of faith. We have never done anything to earn it. We never could do anything to earn such a gift. The ability to believe. Wow, that is really something. In the gospel, Jesus said, "Blessed are those who have not seen and have believed." You and I are those blessed ones.